go, everybody. The art of powerful conversation tips we can all use. Here to share them is Stuart Knight with Knight Flight Productions. Good morning, Stuart.
Good morning, Dina.
Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
These are really good tips. I was reading through them, and they seem pretty, I mean, they're commonsensical, but at the same time, they're things we need to be reminded of.
Exactly, yeah.
And, well, exercise.
Yeah, you know, what happens, I was saying to some people just the other day, it's like, we all know that if we lift a weight enough times, eventually the arm's going to get bigger and we're going to get stronger, but we don't do it. So it's the same with conversation. There's a lot of the stuff that I teach when I do these workshops. It's common sense, but so many people aren't doing it, and they're wondering why they're not getting results.
Now, is this for businesses as well as to college students? Do you think it's something everybody can use?
Well, I mean, if anyone who's opening their mouth and having a conversation with someone, it's going to have an impact on their life. I mean, it's one of the things that has a huge impact on the business market, no question, because the business market has really lost that human connection. Yeah. And they're all emailing each other, they're all cell phones, text messaging, and they have forgotten that the human connection is usually the way that the deal is made, or is the way that the team works more efficiently.
You're right, so let's get started. The first part is part 2 questioning. What do you mean by part 2 questioning?
Part 2 questioning is a very, very simple thing. So when I ask you a question, I might say to you, where do you work?
Right.
And you might tell me, oh, I work at City TV. And then I might say, oh, how do you like that? And you might say, well, I really like it because of, and you might tell me an answer. Based on your answer, I ask you a question on your answer. And then you give me another answer. And then I ask you a question on that answer. The more that I do that, basically I'm peeling the layers of the onion back to get to the core of who you are. Most people make the mistake of when they ask a question, you give me an answer, and then they ask another question. And it just kills that conversation. It could have gone so much further, and yet they just killed it right there on the spot.
And it could be because of nerves or whatever, but it shows that you are listening. You're an active listener, so you're actually interested in what they're saying, and you want them to expand on that, which is really important, right?
Oh, that's right. Well, I mean, that's how you create that connection. I mean, we could sit here and have a conversation. Literally, this one cup could take us down a path that we never even expected, although we shouldn't concentrate on the cup right now.
Right. The next one is creative questions. What types of questions do you mean by creative questions?
Creative questions are questions that make a person put some effort into their answer. So like I said, if I ask you where you work, where you live, or
standards, right?
Yeah, you don't have to even think. But if I ask you, where would you go if you could be invisible for the day? And why
can you go out there like that? Like if you're at some sort of a business meeting / party, is that okay if you start, aren't they going to think, where's this guy come from?
Well, yeah, of course. If you start the conversation like that, you might find yourself having a lot less conversation. But if I'm talking about situations where, you know, for me, if I'm sitting around with my family for Thanksgiving dinner is coming up, right? I might say to the family, you know, who's the greatest Canadian who's ever lived and why? And that will create a wonderful conversation that goes around the table. It's creative, it's different, and it puts everyone into a situation where they're present as opposed to having the boring, typical family dinner.
What a great point, because it's so true with extended family. You see each other maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and you get into the same routine. Seen any movies? How's work?
Right, yeah.
You don't learn anything new.
I know. I mean, I did ask that question one time, and I found out that my dad was really quite passionate about Pierre Trudeau, and I never even knew that, because my parents are immigrants, and Pierre Trudeau played a very big role in their lives as far as being immigrants to Canada, and I found out these fascinating aspects about where my father had come from that I would have never even known if I didn't ask that creative question.
You delve deeper. That's great. This is really cool. I love this one. Fast tracking.
Fast tracking, yes. That came from a date I was on with a woman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's been a long time since that's happened. No. I was on a date with a woman, and I realized that we were having really kind of simple, safe conversation. You know, how many brothers and sisters do you have? Where do you live? You know, what school did you go to? And what I really wanted to know was the meaty stuff. I mean, life is short, so let's get to it straight away. So I wanted to find out, you know, what were you thinking? What were you feeling before you came out tonight? Or, you know, what would be one thing that maybe you would regret not doing in this lifetime? I wanted to know the core aspects of who this person was. As well, it will help me find out whether or not we should go on a second date. And
it didn't work, did it?
No, exactly. I've been lonely for a long time.
Call them. There's a lot of good-looking girls. Write us, okay? We can make a love connection. And this one's really great. We always make fun of, well, not make fun of, but it's something that younger kids do. You know, I've got to go take this outside. Why?
Yes.
Because I have to bring it to the garbage. Why? And yet you say that's something as adults that we don't ask enough.
You know, we could learn so much from children. I think it's one of the biggest things that we've forgotten in our lifetime is that children have the answers to so many questions, and why is one of them. We as adults are so afraid to ask the question why, because that's a hell of a question. I think it's because we're just so afraid of we're so sensitive. We're worried that we're ever going to create a conflicting situation where someone might get their back against the wall for us asking them why they do what they do.
So let's say like elevator banter. It happens here all the time, right? You don't really know each other, but you see each other every now and again in the elevator, so it's like, how you feeling today? Not too good. you should probe and say why?
Exactly, absolutely. There's nothing to be concerned about. I do this all the time. I mean, I've spoken to 500,000 people across North America. I can tell you, in that time, I've had a lot of conversations. I've put this to the test. I've asked why so many times, and at first, no doubt, people are like a little bit shocked, but then they give you these incredible answers, and then it takes you down a path you would have not gone down if you didn't ask that question.
So they want to open up, they just need the opportunity, they need to feel comfortable, because it depends on the relationship too. If you're coming on too strong, they might be like, well, why are you asking? It's
sure, and I think it's important in how you ask the question. You don't want to come across, and I know you were joking, but you don't want to come across with why, right? Like, you know, someone tells you they work at TD Bank and you don't want to go, why?
Yeah. Who are you
exactly.
really?
They start punching you. You want to just kind of take ownership over it and say, oh, that's an interesting job. You know, I've chosen to be an entrepreneur because of these reasons. Why did you choose to do what you do? So you've taken ownership over your why, and now you're giving them an opportunity to take ownership over their why.
Great advice, Stuart. Thank you so much. For more info to get in contact with Stuart, it's stuartknight.com, and it's spelled StuartKnight.com. So we'll just settle that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful speaker. You can do my job any day. Over to Kevin in the newsroom. Were you listening? Thanks.
Thanks for